Ruben Ramirez Sr. and Ruben Ramirez Jr., the owners of Ruben's Bakery, who on January 2nd of this, about a couple months ago, about 2 or 3 in the morning, right here at the corner of El Segundo and Santa Fe, there was a street takeover. And they actually lit a mattress on fire. And what happened several minutes after that is that a 13-year-old who had stolen a Kia several miles away took that Kia and rammed it through the front of Ruben's Bakery. What then happened is that dozens, scores of juveniles for the most part, ran into Ruben's Bakery, ransacked it, caused over $50,000 of loss, and ran out. Why did they do this? Why did they attack an iconic bakery that's been here for 48 years, that has been part of this community in Compton? The reason is George Gascon's policies. That George Gascon, since he took office in December of 2020, issued within that first day certain special directives that told juveniles that misdemeanors would not be prosecuted under his administration. It was basically a license to steal. He determined up front that there were certain crimes and certain criminals that, despite the evidence, despite the law, he would not prosecute. He then enacted those policies and he handcuffed the over 800 prosecutors who worked with him. He demoralized and has decimated the partnership that the DA's office traditionally had for decades with law enforcement, and he abandoned the victims and the public. He no longer was the champion of the victims in court and in investigations, but it switched the focus of the DA's office to putting criminals' interests first and victims thereafter. That has to change. I am running to actually make that change, and I am fortunate enough to have the honor and the responsibility to bring that change. In the March 5th primary election we just had, 75% of the voters rejected George Gascon. My job is to unify that 75%, the entire 100%, which makes up Democrats, independents, and Republicans. It cuts across not only political lines, but demographic lines and geographic lines. Because people have said throughout this county, enough is enough. That they are tired and frustrated of having their public safety put to the side, of worrying when their families, their children themselves, their parents, go out at night or even during the day to parks, sidewalks, streets, subways. This is not the Los Angeles that I grew up in. I've been here my entire life. We need to bring back Los Angeles. We need to bring back our public safety. And let me make it clear how we're going to do it, because I reject extreme blanket policies. I reject them on the mass incarceration side, and I reject them on the George Gascon decarceration side. What I want to go back to is what prosecutors have been doing for decades before George Gascon came into office, which is what I call the hard middle. And the reason it's hard is because you have to look at each individual case. You have to look at the defendant and the defendant's background, the impact on the victim, the crimes committed, and determine who are the true threats to our public safety and need to be behind bars, and quite candidly, the ones that aren't. Your first-time nonviolent offender could very well pay their debt to society through community service or a diversion program. And hopefully, they will never be back in the criminal justice system again. My approach to promoting, ensuring public safety in this county is soup to nuts. We need to deal with community empowerment and programs like Project LEAD that go out into the community to our youth and explain to them what our whole system is about and what are the consequences if you commit crimes. We need then to hold people accountable for their actions. And then if they end up going to prison, we need to focus resources on making sure those prisoners have a skill set. So when they come back into our communities, they lead productive lives and don't go back to lives of crime. It is an absolute tragedy that our recidivism rate, the rate at which people get out of prison, commit crimes, and go back to prisons, is over 50%. I support programs like The Last Mile, which is actually teaching coding skills to prisoners. And when they come out, The Last Mile's recidivism rate is not over 50%, it's 0%. Because it turns out when you give someone a skill set and you give them a productive job to do every day, they're not going back to lives of crime. So my approach will be a soup to nuts approach to community empowerment, work with youths, then hold people accountable if they do commit those crimes in a proportional and smart way. And then if they end up in prison, make sure these prisoners have skill sets so when they come out, they don't go back to prison. Right. Now, I am very fortunate and lucky, not just to have the responsibility to represent all the people to defeat George Gascon in this upcoming November 5th general election, but to have the endorsements and support today of two of the people who ran against me, John McKinney and Maria Ramirez. They are superstars in the DA's office, and George Gascon has squandered the resources of such talent, and not just themselves, but the 800 deputy district attorneys, of which they are prime examples of, because he doesn't look at their collective wisdom and prosecutorial experience of thousands of years and view that as an asset. He views that as a threat. So much so that, again, 98% of these deputy district attorneys supported his recall. He has been faced with more lawsuits in his first tenure than any DA in history, over 20 lawsuits by the people that he is supposed to lead. I look forward to learning from, to working with John McKinney, Maria Ramirez, and all the deputy district attorneys in the entire DA's office. So it is a pleasure to first introduce Maria Ramirez. Yeah. Maria is a over 30-year veteran of the DA's office. She is the first Latina to be both a head deputy and a bureau director in charge of specialized prosecutions that includes everything from major crimes to sex crimes and family violence. Maria and John ran strong, hard-hitting campaigns against their boss, George Gascon, and quite candidly, that takes courage. Enormous courage to call your boss out and call him out in front of the public and victims and other prosecutors and law enforcement and tell them he is not doing the job. He is not making us more safe. So let me call Maria Ramirez right now to speak to you all.
Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here. I have been a prosecutor in the LA County District Attorney's Office now for more than 33 years. During most of that time, I have been supported by the elected district attorney as I fought for victims of crime and the well-being of our most vulnerable communities. 3 years ago, LA County elected George Gascon as district attorney under the mistaken belief that he would improve our criminal justice system. Instead, he has made it worse. The current district attorney has prioritized criminals over victims and has politicized the district attorney's office. He only cares about his political agenda and has created chaos and dysfunction in the DA's office. Under this district attorney, I have not felt supported in my fight to protect our communities from crime. This is why I ran for district attorney in the primary. I could not stand by while George Gascon destroyed our office and our communities. I am proud of my campaign and what I stood for. While things did not turn out the way I planned, my goal remains the same: to defeat Gascon in November and restore the public's trust in our office to keep the community safe. I believe that Nathan Hochman can do that. I met Nathan Hochman on the campaign trail and have found in him someone who has the same goal as I did: to prioritize public safety and the rights of victims, to protect people and businesses like Ruben's Bakery from criminals. After the bakery was burglarized, I was invited to visit with Ruben and find out how the incident affected his business, his employees, and the community that shops here. I found out later that Nathan had done the same thing. And where was George Gascon? He was nowhere to be found. Nathan is committed to businesses like Ruben's Bakery that provides goods, services, and jobs to our most vulnerable communities. In Nathan, I have found someone who has integrity and is willing to work with and listen to the hardworking people of our communities who want to work and live in a safe environment. Nathan cares about ensuring that our children are safe at school and our loved ones are safe when they are at work. Nathan is ready to work with the dedicated workforce of the district attorney's office instead of against us. In the last month, Nathan has reached out to more of our employees than George Gascon has done in the last 3 years. This is a sign of a good and strong leader. This is the kind of leader our county needs now. Someone who is dependable and compassionate and will put our community's needs above all else. I especially am grateful for Nathan's efforts to take politics out of the DA's office so that we can focus on what really matters to all of us, enforcing the laws of our state so that criminals are held accountable for their actions and do not continue to hurt our citizens and our communities. I stand before you today to urge all Angelenos to support Nathan Hochman for Los Angeles County District Attorney. Unas pocas palabras en español para la comunidad hispana. Me llamo María Ramírez y he sido fiscal por 33 años, peleando por nuestras comunidades y protegiendo a las víctimas del crimen. Estoy aquí hoy para recomendarles a Nathan Hochman para fiscal de Los Ángeles. A él les importan nuestras comunidades y la seguridad de nuestras familias. El fiscal que está en oficina hoy no ha hecho su trabajo y en vez le importa que han sido víctimas por estos delincuentes. Nathan Hochman está listo para trabajar por proteger a nuestras familias y nuestros negocios. Les urjo que voten por Nathan Hochman para fiscal en noviembre. Muchas gracias.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce John McKinney. John McKinney has over 25 years of experience in the LA DA's office, and quite candidly is one of the superstar trial prosecutors with over 40 murder convictions in his record. John is able to relate to jurors and to the public in a way that communicates the message. And that is a message that he is committed to justice, that he is committed to community empowerment and safety. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce John McKinney.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. It is my honor to be back here in the city of Compton, where I spent 6 of my first 7 years as a deputy district attorney, fighting every day to ensure that the people who live and work and go to school in this community remain safe and are able to thrive as they walk the streets and enjoy the public spaces here in Compton. Now, when I started here in Compton back in 1999, it was a very different place. But over the course of the next couple of decades, things have improved a great deal here in this community. There are actually businesses here now, unlike there were back in 1999, where there were very few businesses able to thrive. In the last couple of years, though, I've become increasingly concerned about communities like Compton, especially small business owners like the Ramirez family that owns this business that's behind me, which you all know was the subject of a smash and grab, some people call crash and grab, horrific robbery earlier this year. I am here today to not only express my support for change in November, but to express my support for small business owners like the Ramirez family. I stand before you today not as a former candidate for district attorney. I stand before you as a concerned citizen of Los Angeles County, the same concerned citizen that was so troubled by the direction of the criminal justice system under the current office holder that I decided to get in the race and run myself. It wasn't something that I had designs to do before George Gascon became the district attorney of Los Angeles. And in the wake of a hard-fought campaign, I stand before you today to offer my full, unadulterated support for Nathan Hochman to be the next district attorney of Los Angeles County. I do it for a number of reasons, not the least of which is I recognize that this election presents a crossroads for Los Angeles County when it comes to public safety. We have two distinct paths before us. We can either remain on the path that we're on, in which we see higher crime rates, a feeling of insecurity, a general sense of dissatisfaction with our criminal justice system, or we can choose change. And make no mistake about it, Nathan Hochman is the candidate for change. I first met Nathan, I think it was 2022, when he was running for Attorney General, and I was out doing public speaking on behalf of the effort to recall George Gascon. I met him several more times during the campaign and even after his victory. And what I've learned about him over that period of time is that he's a good man with a good heart, and he wants this job for the right reasons. He wants this job not for political reasons, not to push some prefabricated agenda, but to make things right. And he understands that to make things right, he needs the buy-in of the community. That's community engagement. That means being more transparent. That means activating communities like Compton and Watts and South LA and East LA and giving people a seat at the table so they can have input in the direction of our criminal justice system. That's not happening now. I don't know that that really ever happened in the DA's office, but he has assured me that he's committed to that vision, and that's something that I wholeheartedly support. I also understand that Nathan Hochman is actually someone who is qualified, eminently qualified, to be the district attorney. Here's a man who graduated from the Stanford School of Law. Here's a man who worked as an assistant U.S. attorney, was appointed by the President of the United States to be the Assistant Attorney General. From there, he went on to many years in private practice, and he served 5 years on the LA City Ethics Commission, a very important position in government. He is eminently qualified to be the district attorney, unlike the current office holder who never practiced law a day in his life until he was given the job of district attorney. Now, my campaign was built on a foundation of safeguarding our community, especially our young people. And I know that Nathan Hochman shares that vision passionately. You heard him talk about the need to build up our Project Lead program. That is to reach out to our young people as early as 5th grade, to protect them, to educate them, to mentor them, to help them get through those troubled years of middle school and high school where many tend to come into contact with negative people and negative ideas. That's called preventive criminal justice. We don't want to see young people ever in the criminal justice system, but that's not going to happen by magic. That's only going to happen when people are committed to get in their lives and help them and usher them through tough times in their lives. I know it firsthand because I grew up in a community much like Compton. I lost my parents at an early age. I grew up during the crack cocaine epidemic where there were many pitfalls all around young men like me every day. And the last thing I needed in my life then would have been somebody like George Gascon, all but inviting me to commit crime with no accountability and no responsibility. I would not be here today. I would not be a graduate of law school. I would have never become a prosecutor if George Gascon or someone like him were the district attorney of the community that I grew up in. And that makes me worry about the young people who are growing up in places like Compton and Watts and South LA and East LA today. What chance do they have when the head of the criminal justice system is taking the position that it is okay for them to commit crimes, especially like the one we saw here, where they backed a vehicle right into this business and looted the place? I didn't hear anything from George Gascon about that and so many other crimes that have become all too familiar to us in Los Angeles. I am confident, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't confident, that under Nathan Hochman's leadership, we will see a Los Angeles that is more just, that is safer, where justice is more prevalent, and everybody has a seat at the table. Let's stand together today and going forward. Let's stand beyond the boundaries of politics and unite for the greater good of Los Angeles. That's what this campaign is about. Forget your political persuasion, forget your ideology. This is about us coming together for the greater good of the people of Los Angeles County. Now, we could be anywhere in Los Angeles County this morning. We could be on the west side. We could be in the Pacific Palisades. We could be in the Valley. But no, we chose to be here in Compton. This is purposeful. We chose to stand with Ruben Ramirez and his family and other small businesses just like them. We chose to be here because Nathan wants to send a message to Los Angeles County that he cares about every community in Los Angeles County. It doesn't matter whether or not people voted for him in the primary or not. The election in November is a new election. It's a new opportunity for people to get to know him, to see what he stands for, and you'll see that you share his values. In endorsing Nathan Hochman for Los Angeles District Attorney, I am endorsing a future where our streets are safer and our family and our businesses can thrive. That's why I'm here. I see it, ladies and gentlemen. I see the choice. It's a stark choice. The path of Gascon is a path of failure. He's been given a full opportunity. The people of Los Angeles County turned away 2 recalls to make sure he had a full opportunity to show what he could do. And he's had that opportunity and he's squandered it. No one is satisfied with the state of criminal justice in Los Angeles County, not even the 25% or so of people who voted for him. Nobody is satisfied. Well, we know that 75% who didn't vote for him and the many others who didn't vote at all but will come out and vote in November are going to choose a path of safety and security and really just common sense for the future. I support Nathan Hochman. I ask that you all do too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria and John. And after hearing their words, people will question why George Gascon did not make John and Maria his allies. They are brilliant, they are articulate, they are dedicated, committed, and passionate about safety, about our security, about making sure justice occurs, as John said, not just in some communities, but in all communities. So it falls upon me. I am given that responsibility to represent the issues that Maria and John have set forth, the concerns, the commitments, the dedication to justice, so that we have the Ramirez family and other victims that are here today, understanding that their DA's office will be their champion. not someone who's going to put criminals' interests in front of theirs, but someone who will be and put their interests in front of all else. Again, it is an absolute privilege to be here today. And I must say to George Gascon that the golden age of criminals that you have ushered in is about to come to an end. And working with Maria, working with John, all the deputy district attorneys, working with the tens of thousands of law enforcement officers throughout this county, working with victims groups and victims and the public throughout the 88 cities in this county, we will usher in the golden age of Los Angeles County again. Thank you very, very much for coming. We'll take some questions now if anyone has them. But again, I appreciate everyone coming today. And again, it is a true honor to be here. If anyone has any questions, we'll take them now.
What message do you think these endorsements send to George Gascon and the coalition that you want to build ahead of November?
So the message that these endorsements send is that politics is not what the November election is going to be about. My whole campaign, as John mentioned, is about taking politics out of the DA's office. Right now, George Gascon does not use only two things to make decisions, which are the facts and the law. He has inserted a political agenda on top of it that has decided that there are certain crimes and certain criminals that will not be prosecuted, notwithstanding the facts and the law. I think what John and Maria's endorsements send today to people who, again, are Democrats, and I have run as an independent in this race, they basically say that what we should be focusing on is not politics or a political party, but who's going to keep us safe for the next 4 years. As John said, George Gascon has been given a chance and he has failed. Violent crime is up every single year compared to the year he came into office. And property crimes, including the property crime that happened here on January 2nd, are skyrocketed. Shoplifting is up 81% in the last year alone. So what I think these endorsements send a strong, strong message is that this election's not going to be about what political party you might happen to be. George Gascon cannot run on his experience. Normally, a DA likes to tout their experience as to why they can beat a challenger, but he has never personally prosecuted a criminal case or defended one his entire life. I have 34 years of criminal justice experience. I've prosecuted over 100 cases. I've defended over 200. He cannot run on his experience. So normally a DA then runs on their record, and they say, I've kept the people of Los Angeles County safe. He can't run on a failed record where the statistics show he has failed, and over 2/3 of people in Los Angeles County polled say they feel less safe today than when George Gascon came into office. So what does he have left? He's going to try and politicize this race. He's going to try and make it Democrats versus Republicans. But again, what George Gascon doesn't understand is that people, and to use the old adage, criminals don't ask for your party affiliation before they rob you. Neither will voters focus on a party affiliation when they go ahead and decide who's going to keep them safe for the next 4 years. George Gascon was a Republican for almost 30 years before he became a Democrat in 2011. I was a Republican for 20 years, which means that George Gascon was a Republican longer than I have been a Republican, and I was a centrist Republican. And then George Gascon's been a Democrat for 13 years. I was a Democrat when I started my election history for 20 years. I was a centrist Democrat. So I've actually been a Democrat longer than George Gascon, and he's been a Republican longer than I have been. Yet now I'm an independent running for a nonpartisan office where we actually want the district attorney to be independent. You don't want a political agenda deciding who's going to go to jail. You want someone who's going to just look at the facts, just look at the law, and make the decision based on that. You're going to want someone who's going to rely on the almost 60 years of experience of a John McKinney and Maria Ramirez combined, and the thousands of years of experience that the almost 800 deputy district attorneys bring to those decisions every single day, rather than George Gascon, who is afraid of these people. He literally is afraid of these people because he knows they have more experience than he does. So that's what I predict what's going to happen in the November election, at the voters, not just the 75% who rejected George Gascon, but the close to the entire 100% are going to make that decision based on who's going to keep them safe and who's not. That is not George Gascon, and that will be Nathan Hochman. Any other questions? And we can take questions after this conference is over as well. Yes, we are. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
That there was a disparity of arrests in the Black community that George Gascon can't believe on. Can you speak to his progress or lack of progress regarding that, and whether that is one of your reasons for backing Nathan Hochman instead of going with Gascon, which I know you very much. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, I would. And you know, I would say that when you say there's no way I would back Gascon, I want to put that in a certain context. I've been very critical of George Gascon for many years now, but there were some candidates in this race who I would have supported him over. So I'm not someone who's come to this position just because I have some gripe with Gascon. I'm literally looking at the two candidates and deciding which is the best of the two. But to your larger point, there has been no progress. George Gascon promised a lot of things when he was running for office, and when he assumed office, he promised that his policies were going to make us safer. His policies were going to save us money. His policies were going to result in more justice, especially for minorities. But when you look at the statistics of Black men, for example, who continue to commit crimes, be convicted, and go to jail, they are no different 4 years after Gascon than they were when he started. When you look at the number of Black women who are being victimized in Los Angeles County, and this is really shocking, where Black women make up about 4% of the county's population, they make up over a third of the female homicide victims in Los Angeles County. That is happening on his watch. And not only does he not have a plan to deal with it, he doesn't even talk about it. He doesn't talk about the crime that's really happening, that's hurting the people who are most vulnerable in our community. Nathan Hochman is not going to be afraid to address the real challenges that we face. When he sees a crisis, he's going to call attention to it. And he's going to bring people like Maria, myself, and other senior DAs together. He'll reach out to law enforcement more broadly to try to get the answers we need to meet those challenges. And he'll do that because he's not insecure about his own intelligence and his own ability. A real leader does not surround himself with lessers, people who are less knowledgeable and less experienced the way the current office holder is doing. He's surrounding himself with people who have never prosecuted cases in their careers. He's plucking defense attorneys from the public defender's office because he doesn't have the confidence of surrounding himself with knowledgeable people like me, Maria, and so many others. That's not going to happen with Nathan Hochman. He's a real leader. He's secure in who he is. He'll probably have a cabinet of rivals, so to speak, so he can hear different points of view and then make the best decision among those offered. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming today. We'll be available afterwards if anyone has any questions. But again, I appreciate so much the Ramirez family, for what you've gone through and our commitment to make sure this does not happen again. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone else who's come out today. And a huge thank you to John and Maria. So thank you again.
Excuse me, group picture with the media. Yeah, come on, everybody.
Everyone can come up here.
Yeah.
John, Maria, we're going to get a picture just right up here.
Yeah, you in the center. You in the middle.